I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost 9:00. So anyone that is on now that was here last week for the Northwestern Mutual presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I was like halfway through and then I got kicked off and I couldn't get back on. So, but I did have a couple takeaways. Was there anyone that had anything profound that one thing that they took away from last week?
Databases bank, no matter, I mean, even for them too. I mean, you have to know people and you have to, put yourself out there. You gotta make the moves to build your data bank, which is gonna lead to your bank.
Yep. And no one's going to do that except for you. I mean, honestly, just so you know, I'm a big time blocker. Otherwise, I will not get anything done and I can procrastinate like no one's business. So I have to put everything on my calendar. So my whole last couple days have been my database because we're putting everything, making sure that command is set up for neighborhood nurtures and all of that. So I literally had to go through each and every contact that I had to make sure it was correct and updated. Honestly, there were some people in there, I'm like, I have no idea who this person is or how they got into my database. I eliminated some, I added some, and that's going to be your base. Really work on that for 2021. Next week, Connie and I are going to roll out what you should be doing now for next year. What you are currently doing today is going to show up in January and February. So if you are not in your database, making those phone calls, emails, texts, just to check in on them, whatever it is, your business won't be there unless you pay attention. And one of the biggest, and I am guilty of it too, I happen in the past, is I kind of take my December and think, oh my gosh, what a year. Worked so hard. I'm kind of done. I'm going to take the December kind of off and, celebrate and decorate and blah, blah, blah. Well, you can't do that because if you do that, January is going to roll around and you're going to think, I have nothing on the books. I have nothing. So be very mindful of that. I have a whiteboard at work, and that's the only way I can really survive. I'm a very visual person. I have it split in half, sellers, buyers, and any conversation or any inclination that these people are going to buy or these people are going to sell, I put them on my whiteboard. And I go in and I look at it every single day. Like, who have I missed out on or who do I need to contact? I have it in my database, but for me to look at it, and then when I have them under contract, I put a check by it and I kind of eliminate them and I watch that board grow for the whole year. There might be some people that I have to erase, but it really helps me keep mentally on track. So just an idea for you, if you primarily work out of your house, which a lot of us are doing, get a whiteboard and hang it up somewhere so you can look at it every day. It's kind of like a vision board for me. So that's my tip for Thursday. We have, and it's not Julia Ola up here in the corner. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know what you're all about?
I am Andrea Bell. I am the focus closer here in the Heartland office. And I was asked to talk a little bit about title and closings and the process of how we get from when you guys turn a contract into us till we close and everyone is paid and you are, everyone gets paid. I guess that's the bottom line. When sellers are paid, agents are paid, documents are filed. So I'm just here to visit with you, kind of go a Title 101, if you're interested in knowing, just some of the details of what we do and who we are.
And let me tell you guys, you will be asked questions from buyers or sellers about things that pertain to title. And knowledge is power. So you need to be aware of what's happening behind the scenes. And there is a lot behind the scenes that happens. And it's really imperative that you understand the process. You don't have to know everything, but there are some key points that you do need to be aware of to make the transaction go smoothly and close. So I'm going to hand it off to you, my lady.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Andrea, and I am out in Heartland. For you who don't know the details of Focus Title, we are a joint venture with Nightberry Title. And with that brings a lot of wonderful bonus points. Not only do we have, the 4 offices in the Keller Williams, but we also have access to all of the Nightberry offices for remote closings, for, more convenient closings for people. So we are a joint venture with them with use of, I have to say, their prior title database. So anytime that I usually look to make sure when you place an order, I can look on their database to see if the prior title is there. Therefore, it saves your customer some money. So it's a great partnership that we have, both resources and location wise. But I do encourage you to use Focus rather than our parent company, because it goes to your profit center. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some title insurance today, and to kind of touch on information that I have. I agree with you that knowledge is power, and I am all about resources for you. Once again, you have a wonderful staff of closers within each of your offices. We are all very seasoned closers. I've been with Nightberry/Focus for 15 years. Lynn, I think, is going on down in the Southwest office. She's going on just probably 8 years with us, but she probably has, 25 years of experience, as well as Jenny and Jen Moth. So you're not getting a bunch of people who haven't seen some unique situations, and we do get to see some unique situations here. But the reason what we do as a title company is that we provide the title insurance, the closing documents, order the payoffs, and take it to closing as smoothly as possible. But what title insurance really is making sure that there are no unseen, make sure everyone is taken care of who has an interest in the property, making sure everything that gets paid off that's a lien against the property, so that the property is conveyed completely and clearly and cleanly to the new owners. We are a homestead property state. So what that means is once you are married and you live in the property, you have a homestead interest, whether or not you're married or not. So we do have to make sure that in that situation, we have the wife signing or the husband signing the documents, even though they may not be on title. So those are kind of some of the things that's not done, that spouse can come back and say, I have an interest in that property. And then we have a great big mess that they didn't get what was due them under the homestead laws in the state. So,
okay, I'm going to just interrupt right there, because good point. If you are taking a listing, who needs to sign that listing agreement? Do both husband and wife need to sign it?
That would be for your compliance, but I would say, or is it for everybody else?
This is a question to the group. If you only need one person to sign that listing agreement. Anyone can sign a listing agreement. However, when it goes under contract and you're presenting an offer, all parties need to sign. Husband and wife need to sign that offer. I highly suggest that both parties sign that listing agreement. We do, I do. I make sure that both parties are there. They both sign it. But legally, only one person needs to sign that listing agreement. It will show up when you go to title, right? And then they have to do the closing document. So just wanted to punch in a little bit about that. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, and just as in to elaborate just a little bit more on that. For example, if Ms. Katie has a property that she owns with her husband, but she's the only one on title, while he is going to be required to sign to release his homestead rights, Ms. Katie is the only one on title that gets the check. But the deed does have to be executed, for example, in this case, for homestead interest. So those are just kind of some of the nuances that we have. So I'm sure I get it quite often. It's like, well, he bought that when he was single, but he's now married. He has a spouse. She's got to sign. He gets all the money though, so he'll be happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to make sure that you know, we do have resources. So if you ever have like questions, I have, like, what is title insurance? I also have we just have these new forms that says an agent's checklist for successful closings. These are kind of some of the things that we typically will want when you turn in your offer to purchase. It's very important that we get, the signed seller authorization form. And we do have to, more and more are allowing electronic, but we do have some lenders that do not allow electronic signatures. I know I had one recently that they said they would not do an e-sign. It had to be a wet sign. So please be advised, it might come back. Landmark Credit Union, I'm not mentioning names.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but like Chase and Wells Fargo, we can order those online. We get them really quick. But like some of the credit unions and like that, they're going to want, a wet signature. But
hey, Andrea, sorry, I have a quick question just to backtrack really quick. So say a guy buys a house and then gets married and wants to add his now wife to the home, to the title. Is that possible? And then would she be an equal owner, or how does that work? Because I know Wisconsin has that I forget what the term is, but you don't own through marriage, right? You don't own the house through marriage.
Of marital property.
Yes.
So
how does that work?
That's certainly something that can easily be done. And for that exact rights, because if something happens to him, it goes into probate, as opposed to if you have your wife on it, then she gets the survivorship of marital rights. So that's an easy thing to do. It's called a quit claim deed, that we just have to have some information. We have to have a deed signed, a transfer return prepared. We do ask that you let us double check if we've recently done it, then we will have the legal description, exactly how the names are titled. There may be an instance where we have to do a search if we didn't do the closing, just so that we can have the correct legal description, the correct way his name is, and all the correct information. So we might have to do a quick little report on that. But typically just a quit claim deed is $100 to prepare it, $30 to record it.
Okay, cool.
So, and that's why you'll, at least those who have been in my closings, I always just confirm you're still husband and wife, so we have to have marital rights on, for the seller's name on the deed to, or if they're not husband and wife and it's an investment property, you don't have to worry about the wife. It's considered, this is not homestead property. If you've ever seen a deed on the lower right-hand corner, that's where it determines whether or not it is homestead or not homestead property.
Thank you.
You bet. But anyway, just go back. If you ever want to have this little checklist, please reach out to me. You know, I don't want to go through, you know, in detail, but just so that you know, we do need, you know, the homeowners association. A lot of the times we can get, you know, payoffs with just the last 4 socials, but you know, that's kind of a hit or miss. They usually like to have the whole social, and I know that gets a little tricky with that. But you know, there's so many different other you know, situations that might come up. You have to have a power of attorney. We'd be more than happy to draft power of attorneys for your sellers. And I'm basically today, I'm going to speak through the seller side of a transaction as opposed to a buyer side, if that's acceptable today. So yeah. We just want to make things that as smooth as possible. We do ask that you, when you're getting your appointment, if they can start looking for their prior title. That prior title sometimes takes a couple of days to track down or to find, but it saves them about 20%, as well as it saves us being able to go back and look at what we find in the prior title policy didn't find. It helps my examiners also with the preparation and the expediting of title. And I know we've had a very crazy summer, and thank all of you for your business. And we were, those prior title policies came in handy just to clear, you know, an old seller that was on title. It clarified an easement that we disputed. So those prior title policies are very important to us. If you can ever get them, and like I said, a 20% savings is quite helpful. We also, as part of our, normally I do this, I have this nice little folder for everybody, and it has all these good little tips and everything. I used to have candy bars I would throw to people with right answers, but we're quite resourceful on these tips for smooth closings from start to closing. So we always are trying to, once again, educate, empower. I really like that word, empower. You to know, you know, exactly what we're doing, and to answer any of these off the wall questions that you'll go, what is that? So once again, we are a resource for any information you want to read, any information that you want to call us on. I'll be more than happy to help you. I also have this authorization form. This is kind of the one that you get filled out, the authorization to release the information, which has their signature. It also asks a couple of questions like, you know, is this your primary residence? That helps us when we come to the fork in the road. Do we need a wife? Do we not need a wife? Do we need a spouse? Do we not need? It also has the likes to list your homeowners association and your mortgages. Just a quick tip about mortgages. It's several people have mortgages, their home equity lines of credit that they have zero balance on. We still need to get that information because we have to close that account out. That home equity line of credit is still a lien on that property. So we have to pay it off, close it out. It has to be satisfied. So they quite often they'll say, oh, it's a zero balance. There's nothing to worry about. Yeah, it's still a lien on title that we have to take care of.
And I'm going to interrupt you just a second. On that line of credit, you guys, so that authorization to release, when we go on a listing appointment, prior to their listing appointment, I always ask, can you please see if you can locate your prior title? It will say typically Schedule A, Schedule B, because, and I don't go into it, but I will grab that from them when I sign the listing paperwork, because you get it then, and then you give it to Focus Title. But also that authorization to release, get that done at your listing appointment, have everyone sign it, and you hand it in, because those are the two things that will really muck up the waters if you don't get them in right away. But going back to that line of credit, make sure you tell these sellers, do not close out your line of credit, even if there is a zero balance. Don't go and do it themselves. Let the title company do that. And you know why? I'll let you tell them why. Because it's happened to me.
Because we still, then instead of us paying it off and closing it out and under our control, we have to wait till they record a satisfaction. And if they send it to a third party or something like that, that could very easily muck it up for days, if not weeks, to have it recorded. So once they pay it off, then we have to get a satisfaction, which is a delay.
So you may not be able to close on that property if they go ahead and decide to close that out themselves. It could delay the closing, and it's happened to us. We've told the seller, don't close out your equity line of credit. We know you have a zero balance. The title company will do that for you. They did it anyway, and we had to delay closing. It was a disaster. So it's super important that you reiterate that to your clients.
And let's go to the other extreme. Tell them not to go and draw $100,000 off of it right before closing. Because that will, oh, we needed it to purchase our other house. Well, now we have to get a payoff because we're not paying off and clearing that lien. So tell them they can't draw off the line of credit the day before closing either. So that has also happened to us here. Yeah. Just to, once again, the authorization form, but also there's been recent discussion about the lovely FERPTA form, since there has been a recent change to that. But I know that not everybody is using the new real estate condition report. There's a benefit to using that one, not for more than one reason. C4M is taking the place of the FERPTA form. So if they check, no, they are not a foreign resident, a foreign person, then I don't need a FERPTA form. But if you're using the old form, then you have the uncomfortable process of getting there to fill it out, including their social security number, and getting it to us so that we can issue the FERPTA cert. Now, and perhaps someone can speak to this, but it's my understanding that this FERPTA cert is a requirement in order to get commission checks processed. Is that correct? Yes, no? If it is, I would think you would definitely want to get that FERPTA cert taken care of. But if you use this, if you use the new forms where it has the G4M, and it looks like this is on page 5 of 6, no need to have a FERPTA form, no need to ask those uncomfortable questions, have it mailed in. A lot of people are a little uncomfortable with that, but it is, that does make things just a little bit easier for you as far as getting that FERPTA cert and not getting anything hung up on. They do have to have the social security numbers on it for reporting purposes, for possible reporting purposes. Any questions on any things so far?
Yep, there is a question. Can we get those forms on the Focus website 20% off of what amount?
20%. Okay, which forms? Are you talking about my flyers? Or,
I think so, yeah. So, yeah.
No, the flyers are things that we have printed up just for us. Please reach out to, the closer in your office. We all have access to them. Reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to interoffice them, scan them to you, whatever way makes it easiest for you, just for informational purposes. Because we have several of them that I just got my recent batch in. I've got one that's on the different kinds of deeds. What's the difference between a quitclaim deed, a warranty deed, a personal rep versus a trustee's deed? There's a number of different deeds that convey things differently. Condominium deed, is very different than even a warranty deed. So so we have a number of resources that we've just started printing up a whole bunch of new resources and information for you. So I just got my batch just yesterday, just in time. So, and a couple of my stuff is still back ordered, but understand we will provide you with what we have as soon as we get it.
And then the 20% off of the title, what is normal title fees? Does
Well,
that vary?
It does vary. The rates are set by the Board of Insurance out of Madison. It's not something that we can say, oh, we'll give you, we'll only do this for, in the old days, those who've been around, we'll just do it for this amount. It's set by the insurance board, and we do have a rate chart on our website that'll tell you what it is. And it is 20%, it's typically 20% off just the premium. Gap insurance is always an additional charge. Any other easements or any other type of there's no discounts that apply to that. It's just the base amount.
Can you explain to everyone what gap insurance is? Because I got to tell you, I think that was a question that a lot of sellers were asking, like, why am I paying for gap insurance and what does that mean?
Gap insurance is now a requirement on your contracts. Before it was an optional, but I would say within this last time that the contract was redone, it is now a requirement. And gap insurance covers the period of time that the courthouse is actually recording. They have recordings up to a certain date. And like they're typically run anywhere from, 2 to 5 weeks behind. So they might be recording as November 5th, and we have a closing today. So the gap between November 5th and the day before closing, we don't know what's in there. We don't know if there's been a judgment filed in there. We don't know if there's been a mortgage. We don't know if there's been a claim. So we do verbal updates before every closing to try and minimize that. That might shrink the window by 2 weeks, but that covers that period of time that documents have not been recorded and are of public record. So if something were to be recorded during that period of time, then your seller's on the hook, previously is on the hook for something that got filed against the property. That's why, and that the primary villain in that one are construction liens. So if a contractor has done the work and is not providing us with the lien waiver, they have a right to file a claim against the property. So the importance of those lien waivers is to make sure that there are no liens from any contractor placed against the property during that period. That answer the question?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So is something that we now have, standard practice. So that puts a little bit more on us. And that's why we kind of, double check, and we're probably a little bit more emphatic about asking for lien waivers, making sure that I know I've had the experience with like a landscaper, and he'll say he brought on the lien waiver up until November 15th. Well, what about from the 15th to today? Well, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be doing any more work. So that was kind of a booger of a negotiation, trying to get him to release all the liens, because the reason for a contractor can place a lien on the property is they have no way to guarantee payment from the seller. Their work is done on the property. They have no recourse. The only recourse is to file a construction lien so that they can get paid. So make sure that, that's why we're quite diligent about saying, get us the lien waivers. I'm not so worried about $100, plumber who came in and tightened a valve and replaced a stopper. I'm worried about the landscaper that we got $5,000 worth of new shrubs put in, or the septic people that got, a new well that they disagreed on the amount that had to be paid. So it's just, that's the point of those lien waivers, and how come we're just a little bit more, because those could fall within that gap period, and then we're responsible for it. Okie doke. Yep. All right. One other thing, I'm seeing more and more, we're seeing more and more sellers either in LLCs or in trusts. And with a trust, these can be a little on the tricky side. If it just says, you know, Grady Clark, trustee of the Grady Clark Revocable Trust of 2015, that pretty much tells me that he is the one who is going to be signing. But if it says the Grady Clark Family Trust, I have the trustee has not been identified in the title. So I'm not sure who has to sign on behalf of the trust. Is it one person? Is it two persons? That's typically when we will come to you and say, we need a copy of the trust documents so that we can make sure the right people are signing to sell this asset. Likewise, with an LLC, we need an operating agreement and what's called a resolution authorizing the sale of an asset from a corporation. Not just anyone can sell an asset from a corporation. Sometimes they might have to be, you know, 2 or 3 people. It might have to have board approval. A lot of the times they are sole members, and we have to prepare then a certain document that they have to sign saying, I'm the sole member, it's only me, there's nobody else. And we will rely on that notarized statement as who is authorized to sell, you know, the Grady Family Trust LLC or LLC document. So we do come back waiting to see how title reads and whether or not the trustee is listed. But if the trustee was, let's just say, you know, Mary Beth has it's, you know, Mary Beth Milky trustee. However, Mary Beth is no longer a trustee. Sorry to say this, Mary Beth, but if you have passed, then we need to know who the successor trustee is. Therefore, we will need to, that's another reason why we need to review trust documents to make sure that we have the right people signing the right documents.
I have a question. What is the advantage? Let's say it's a husband and wife that own the property, own their house. Why would they put that house in a trust? What is the advantage? Is there?
Well, a lot of their attorneys, it's a protection of some of their tax obligations. Please see your tax specialist on whether a trust is beneficial to you or not. But some of it's for estate planning. Some of it is for the protection from, once again, you know, wider family members who might want to get their, have a say in the disposition of an asset. You know, say it's a mom that has it in their trust and she says, no, according to my trust, you know, Katie gets 50, Avi gets 20, Annie gets, you know, the balance. So trusts are set up to carry out the wishes of the major owners of it. So it's something that, you know, more and more people are doing based on their tax liabilities and obligations and protection.
Yep, I've seen so much of that this past year. I was just curious, so I'm going to reach out to my tax person and ask him or her, whoever it is.
But let me also warn you about this. If the title is in the name of the trust, who is the check going to be made payable to? Them as individuals? Them as a trust? Going to be made out to the trust. You will have to have an account in the name of the trust.
Right.
A lot of banks won't cash it if it's, I'm going to keep picking on Grady because he's just right here in front of me. If it's if it's a Grady Clark Family Trust, then he has to have an account that says the Grady Clark Family Trust. You know, he can't just have it made payable to Grady and Nancy. You know, the check will be made payable to how it is titled. I do have one little workaround, but I try not to encourage that. But just if it's in a trust, do you have an account in the name of the trust? Because that's how the funds will be conveyed.
And this is all really great information for you guys to know, because you can always find out, you know, through focus what the answer is. But if you are really listening to this and taking notes, you're going to sound more like an expert at that listing appointment. If they ask you any question, be prepared. If you don't know, you don't know, but listen to what's going on here, because even answering a question like, a trust question, if you know the answer, you're going to come across as being an expert. They're going to lean on you. They know that you have the answer. So knowledge is power. So we're going to go back. Okay.
I have
This
a
is
quick
great.
question, if
Somewhere
that's
that
okay.
you could use them as a protection against a nursing home trying to assume them as part of your assets, but I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a very good question.
And
I think you can, if that trust was set up, and I have heard this, if it's set up so many years prior to someone needing to go into a nursing home. If it was just recently set up, then no. But if it was set up, I don't know what that limit is, but good question. Good.
If
All right.
someone were to purchase, like, let's say a second property, or they have multiple properties and are looking to buy another property, and they aren't in a trust, let's say a married couple is, would you recommend them, like, transfer it, with that, new title on the, new property they're acquiring? Could they, then form a trust and then move everything into that trust? Then could that then be redistributed, or how would that work if they were to form a trust after, like a property purchase?
They
For, like,
can
our
go
second.
back and form a trust, but I would, if I was asked that question, I'd say, you know what, I would highly suggest you sit down with your tax person and
Okay.
figure that out.
they also might want to look at an LLC in that situation, because
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
of those things.
Okay.
But I do want to just to briefly touch on the trust and things like that. There's also what we have, and this was one of Connie's and my most favorite closings, is there was a life estate on the property. If anyone has had any experience on life estates, they are a little on the tricky side. And what a life estate is, let's just say Stephen and Katie have their mom has property, and she says, I'm going to give it to you when I pass. So the title will be with Stephen and Katie, but she reserves a life estate. So she can live in the property as long as she is alive.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if she passes? Nice and easy. We do an HT 110, we remove her. What if she's still alive and they want to sell it? Then we have to get an accountant involved to calculate. I can't do it. An accountant or an attorney has to calculate the value of her life estate, so that when it sells, that her life estate gets X amount of dollars, that she gets a check. She gets an amount of the value of that property. Now, some people don't understand that's what a life estate is, but just kind of file that in the back of your mind. If you ever have something that has a life estate on it and they are still alive, there's going to be some extra steps going to be taken. And that is always listed on your title. When you get a copy of your title, it'll list who the properties are, who the owners are, and it'll say they reserve a life estate. So,
and that could be tricky if there is a 30-day closing involved.
very tricky.
Very tricky.
But that's when I'm gonna get on the phone. I'm gonna say, we didn't know about this. Is what happened with Connie. I didn't know. You said that it was just the kids. Well, mom's still alive. You got to get an accountant involved, and it is a complicated process. I cannot do it. I cannot. And accountants hate it. Anytime I've called an accountant saying, I need you to calculate this, I'm met with groans. Oh, I don't want to do that. So anyway, any questions so far? once again, I have just received my order of the different types of deeds. If you need a copy of it, reach out to me. I'll be glad to scan it to you. I'll be glad to send you one here. I'm just going to touch briefly on title. We do send you a copy of title when we enter our orders. We do list the buyer's agents and the seller's agent, and we send you a copy of the title. So that's kind of where you can look to see who the owners are on your title. It also, if you happen to look a little bit closer, and on my example, there's a divorce situation. And in a divorce situation, I call it, well, they're getting a divorce. Well, you're either married or not. It's kind of like you're pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're married or you're not. So if they're still married, then they both have to agree on a split. We have a specific form that says we're splitting the proceeds 50-50, or I get an extra $10,000 than my soon-to-be ex-husband. So we have a specific form that both parties sign that they agree that this is the split of this house. If they are divorced, then we're going to need a copy of the marital settlement agreement, the MSA, because the courts may have ruled that she gets 75% plus an extra, $15,000 or whatever. But we have to look at that to make sure that the sale is being calculated in accordance with what the court has demanded. Now, can't sneak an extra husband and wife in on me, well, they were married and divorced before, they bought the house, or, sometimes we can catch that because remember that marital status that we put on stuff? We have to put that on the mortgage as well. So when we have a mortgage, we have to identify marital status there. So sometimes we can catch you when there's a wife. Well, it says he was married in 2017. Well, they're divorced. She might have some marital rights involved in this property, just so that you know. So all the things that we clear, once again, any questions that you have on any of our titles, please give me a call or give your closer. I work with some of the best and brightest and hard-knocked people that you'll ever meet. And there's not too much we've seen, and we've seen some pretty extreme situations. We'll just put it at that. Also, the one thing I do want to make sure that I reiterate is quite often you'll have times when you guys are negotiating after inspections and that there's a price change, there is a commission change, there's a home warranty. Please try to remember that we are, hand in hand with you. So if the prices change, please make sure that we get a copy of that amendment, because, you don't want to send out a closing statement and then everyone says, oh, no, we agreed to, increase the purchase price by $10,000, and because that affects the pricing, that affects your commissions, that affects the transfer tax. And so just please be mindful that we do need to get copies of all of your amendments, closing cost credits, name changes, and just another quick reminder that how the buyers and sellers are on the offer to purchase, especially the buyers. So if it's, Lee A. Bell, and that's how it's going to be titled, but I go by Andrea. So, well, the contract is what determines the way we are identifying the buyer's names. Unfortunately, with the seller side, they may have an AKA, also known as, because they're married. That's pulled from the last recorded deed. So the deed has a trickle down effect. So just make sure that the contract that you have is the way that they want to name their names to be on the deed. We have this back and forth with lenders. They'll say, no, we need full names. And sometimes we'll have to come back to you and say, we need an amendment changing their names to, Lee Andrea Bell rather than Lee A. Bell or whatever. So, a contract does rule the the way I prepare my documents as well, not necessarily the seller side, but the accommodations of an NKA, now known as, or an AKA, also known as, addresses some of those easy problems, such as the change in a last name. Can't add somebody at the last minute to get proceeds. You'll have to handle that outside of closing. It's been tried. All right, any questions so far? Good. We at Focus and Knightberry, we are coming up with a brand new closing statement in January. We have, some of us are not as proficient on that as possible, so you might start seeing a slightly different closing statements. It's going to be formatted a little differently. Right now we use two databases. We're now consolidating that into one. I know I always try and send mine out several days in advance, and I usually say, please review and approve. So please make sure that you're looking to make sure I have the right purchase price. Also, you know, the right earnest money. They may have had to extend the closing and they agreed to an additional $10,000. I recently had one that, you know, the other agent didn't look at the closing statement, Shore West, and they came back and said, oh no, you have the earnest money wrong. Well, you're telling me now, you know, 5 minutes before closing, and so just make sure that there's not been some additional commissions or earnest money applied. Also, you know, occupancy, sometimes that comes up. You know, if it's something that's paid outside of closing, that's fine. I know a lot of lenders would prefer that some of that be handled outside of closing, because that affects, you know, some money that they really can't document and whatever, you know. But if you'll just kind of review and make sure that, you know, we have, you know, make sure I'm sure you want to make sure I have paid you properly. So that's why we always ask for a copy of the listing agreement, so that there is that is calculated properly as well. Once again, we have you know, some basic charges. I'm sure everybody knows the transfer tax is $3 per thousand, and it's based on the purchase price. More and more people are wanting, you know, their proceeds wired. Please be aware that we do take that type of wire fraud extremely careful. We have a document that we have them complete. What is ideal for me, at least, is I'll say, contact your bank and make sure that you have the right wiring information. The bottom, for example, on a Chase account on your check is not the same as their wiring instructions. So if you can get a copy of I may ask them to get a copy of their wiring instructions from their financial institution, and I'll have them actually sign it. This is what you gave me. This is what you're agreeing to. Also, like, I'm going to pick on Landmark Credit Union. Credit unions typically don't have money, don't have direct to them. They have a credit union hub that it goes into there, that it's wired into there, and then it's allocated out to the different credit unions. So that's why you can't just give me a deposit slip or a check that says, you know, this is the wiring information, because it's not correct. So we will try and contact them, but if we're not able to get in touch with your Barrett account and verify the information, you know, that could hang up your wire and things like that. So we are trying to be just a little bit more diligent and have a little bit more work done prior to the pre-sign, so that we know exactly where you want your funds. You can always have a check. We used to be able to accommodate a few more deposits. A lot of the credit, I'm going to pick on Landmark Credit Union, and I love Landmark Credit Union, but they don't allow me to deposit any checks for them that aren't endorsed by the customer. So I actually had to have a customer drive in from Watertown into Brookfield to sign the back of a $6,000 check. So, but I can go and deposit $1 million over at US Bank, and they won't, so it's a hit or miss on who it is. We'll try and be as accommodating as possible, but understand, you know, more and more banks are limiting checks of any size being deposited without an endorsement. So some of that might have been curtailed.
And there's two things about this. One, there is a wiring fee typically. So believe it or not, you guys, I have had a few penny pincher sellers that will say to me, I'm not paying this wiring fee. And I mean, what is it? It's like 25 bucks, 50 bucks, something like that. They'll throw a fit over paying a wire fee. So when you talk to them about, having your funds wired, make sure they know that there is a fee involved, and that is a fee that seller has to pay. If they want their funds wired, there is going to be a fee involved. Secondly, if they want that check deposited into their account, it's held for, I think, 2 to 3 business days, right? Something like that.
It may be. I mean, I've had anywhere from overnight to 2 days.
Yeah. So let them know that there may be a period where they will not have access to those funds. I deposited, they were not there at the closing. They wanted me to deposit, the title company deposited the check into their bank. And they called me the next day and said, well, we're closing on this house in Georgia, and our bank is not releasing those funds. Yeah, quite possible.
Well, and then we always want to try and work with, people who are buying right afterwards. So say we're closing, at ABC Title Company. We'll be more than happy to get their wiring instructions and wire it directly to them.
Right.
And then typically what happens is we'll wire the whole amount, and then they'll get the check cut back for the difference, just so that I don't know how many of you have ever been on buying sides, but the cashier's check changes at the last minute. Oh yes, especially right now because it's tax bill time. And let me caution you about what's going on right now with tax bills. They're starting to be released. So we are now having to pay the taxes on the closing statement for the sellers. The concern is, what if Wells Fargo has an escrow and they usually send it directly to the taxing authority? If it's that's where we're going to have to work very, very closely with with all parties, so that they don't pay the taxes twice. Like Wells Fargo will pay them and I will pay them. So please understand, tax bills now are starting to come out, and lenders are going to require that those taxes get paid, and lenders are starting to send tax checks out. We do have some workarounds. Bring us the check for the taxes and we can pay the taxes for the seller, and any difference that comes out of their proceeds. So just be aware that this is a fun time for the next 2 weeks about the property taxes and the escrow checks being sent from the lenders. Just letting you know about that part, because it's so much fun. Ever. One more thing I want to come back to real quick is I've seen that some of you agents are very thoughtful and will agree to pay for a home warranty for your seller as part of the service. You say, we're going to give the buyer a $525 home warranty, and I'm going to pay it out of my commission. We have the ability to pay it, but understand while it's deducted from their commissions, it's still got to show as a payment going out. So sometimes they'll say, well, I'm still paying it. I still have to have that outgoing check, but the amount that you are getting paid is reduced by the amount of that home warranty. So sometimes that kind of throws people off. And I have to be perfectly honest, I have not seen how the new closing statement reflects it. But on the old statement, it would be right underneath there. It would say less $525 for home warranty. So while it's still in there, there still will be an outgoing disbursement for that home warranty, even though it's been deducted.
Okay.
Okay. Once again, I think that's kind of going through, just some of the basics of closings and of title. Do want to touch just quickly on, special assessments. New special assessments might be coming out. Understand that if the street has a, new gutter system, that's going to be $6,000 starting, in the 2021 tax bill, and your seller knows about it, seller's got to pay that. So they'll say, but that's on the tax bill. I understand, but it's a special assessment. That'll be something that you will have to negotiate as part of your great skills. And we typically try and notify you. It's like, are you aware of this large street, this contemplated street or this ongoing street assessment? The payoff is going to be, $6,000. And then you can work with the other agents and the buyers and sellers about how that gets worked out. Same with condominiums. There's a lot of new special assessments because they need to put new roofs on, new paving, all that kind of stuff is going on. So please be advised that, special assessments do have to get, excuse me, addressed and paid or negotiated as part of the closing as well.
What do you see as a constant something that you have to reach out to agents for that shows up over and over again, possibly that could be avoided?
Line of credits.
Lines of credit.
Yep.
Okay.
They'll just say that's zero balance. I haven't used that in 10 years. Oh, I forgot all about it. Because the banks are going to want to a lot of times banks will just tack that on as a convenience. I know financial planners are big believers in that, just as a resource. I would say that and homeowners association information. More and more homeowners associations are going through like HomeWise and the homeowners concepts and stuff like that. So that is a third-party service that we have to go through to get that information. Just be aware, like Bristlecone Pines. I know the administrator over there, and she is now saying they've off-sourced that to a third party. So those are typically the two biggies. Is more than anything, I would say those two.
So when you're having your sellers, you guys fill out that authorization to release form, just remember to let them know if you have a equity line of credit on your home, you need to also write that information down. And don't forget that part, because you're right, that is more than not that people have an equity line of credit. A lot of it is at a zero balance, but they forget. And then don't forget to have that discussion. Don't close out your equity line of credit.
And don't borrow against it.
Yeah, don't borrow against it. Title company will close it out for you.
Yeah, be more than happy to.
How about if you're asking for forms, is it typically the authorization to release, or is it prior title, or what is it that you're constantly trying to get?
Well, I think there was a misunderstanding about the FERPTA form. I know it came out a couple of months ago. They said no more FERPTAs needed. Well,
Right.
That's true, but you have to use the new real estate condition report form with the G4M checked. Otherwise, some listings have been out there for a long period of time, and not really, but some of them they're still using some of the old forms. Then I have to come back to you and say, I need a FERPTA cert. And I know more and more people just don't like giving their social security numbers. I completely get it, but it is a requirement in order for me to issue that FERPTA cert so that you guys can get paid promptly. So use the new form.
And I'm all about delegating, especially when your time is really precious. So just InFocus does have a transaction coordinator that you can pay out of your only if it closes, that will actually handle your contract to close for you guys. So a lot of this information and work can be done by that transaction coordinator. It's great that you know the process and the lingo and the questions to ask at your buyer or seller appointment. But having someone that takes you from contract to close is really going to be beneficial to you. The process is going to be a lot more seamless and professional, in my opinion.
And
You're
in
not
compliance.
clamoring around. If you're working with the co-broke who does not have a transaction coordinator and you can't get a hold of that person, it's like banging your head against the wall. So if you delegate that out immediately, a lot of this you're not going to deal with.
Yeah, the North Shore and the Heartland office share the, we call them TC transaction coordinators. So these two offices share. The Southwest office has their own separate one. And then the Germantown also shares in with, but I think, a lot of those are teams up in the Germantown. So they have a different setup, but they also would use the Renee and her team to do. And she's very good at the compliance part. And as far as the email part, making sure that this is the timeline, you've missed this timeline. She's very good at keeping things, on a calendar. Her calendar, if you ever see it, is just insane. This deadline, this deadline, this deadline, this deadline. So,
75% of transactions fall apart because of a missed date or deadline. Pure fact. So if you have a transaction coordinator that's their job to be on top of those dates and deadlines, it's well worth the money. And again, you're not paying for it unless it closes. So anyone here have used Renee or a transaction coordinator for their closing? No? Okay. I'm going to get Renee on here soon to talk about what her services are.
We might even have a flyer about what a transaction coordinator does. So.
Love it. What is your email address? And I'm going to post it so then people can reach out to you for information that you could send.
Well, feel free. I mean, please understand, I'm part of Jenny's team. So you can always go to Jenny in the North Shore office, Lynn in the New Berlin, Jen Moth. But my email is Andrea B at focustitlewi.com. But once again, your in-house people have the same information. I just won the coin toss and I got to do the Zoom today. So.
Do you guys have any questions for Andrea? Something that you don't know and you just want to find out?
We learn more from our mistakes than we learn from the cookie cut closings. So, I mean, I have extremes from one end to the other, but I always have this saying that says, I'll get to learn new thing a day and I get to go home. So normally I'd be home by about 8:05 in the morning, but they somehow don't let me go by that rule. So understand, we learn more from the extremes, and you just put it in the back of your mind somewhere that you go, oh yeah, I remember I had that crazy one, that with the life estate, so that's an infamous one with Connie Cummings and I. So if you ever want to have her break out laughing on that one,
I think one of my first transactions was a life estate, and I had absolutely no clue what that meant, but it really did delay our closing for a week or so. I mean, it was a total disaster area. So my only thing that I see from our side is not getting the information, any changes of information to the title company prior to close. So, and you did mention that if there's a price reduction or a closing cost credit, or you're now going to pay for the home warranty. Those are all like, what? We didn't know anything about it. So that information is really imperative that it gets to title company. We forget, but they're the ones that are doing, all the numbers and figures that your buyer or seller is going to be looking over, and you're going to look kind of foolish if you did not give that information to the title company and your buyer and seller is looking over the statement going, this isn't right. So look that over closely and make sure that they have everything they need to have.
Because quite often, just to reiterate a little bit more on that, is when I send my closing statement, let's just say to the lender, they'll go, what is this $2,500 closing cost credit? I've got my amendment. And more often than not, it makes us look a little bit better that we have this and the other, just didn't get passed on. And so once again, it's a resource to, once again, make the closing, go smoothly. My goal is to have the closing the happiest point of the transaction, because you want them, they've just incurred, a $300,000 mortgage, and we'll give them a month off to make that first payment. But our goal as closers is to make it as happy and as seamless and free of any concerns or problems as possible. So they walk out of the closing going, let's go start moving, our stuff into our brand new house.
And honestly, that's the last, if everything goes great and then it gets to the closing and it's a disaster, it was not a great experience. Guess what? That's what your client's going to remember about the whole transaction, the whole thing. So try to make it as seamless as possible. And I remember my first closing I went to, I think it wasn't even my buyer. It was one of Jay's buyers. And he asked if I could go to the closing. And I had absolutely no clue what I was supposed to be there for or what I was supposed to do. I mean, I was so nervous, and I literally just sat there, thinking, okay, God, what if they ask me a question? I am going to have absolutely no idea what the answer is. But your job as an agent is, honestly, let the closer do their job, and you're sitting there as support. I mean, we really haven't been going to the closings because of COVID and too many people in a room. You can sit outside the closing room, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. But that's kind of the last hurrah, and you want to go out with a smile on your face.
And we also are encouraging, your sellers to pre-sign.
Yes.
Once again, to limit the number of people, because, at various times on the situation, other title companies are not even letting you in the building. They're saying you've got to sit out in your car. So understand that that's a possibility, that they won't even let you in. And we as Focus Title represent you. We will bring your check back. We will take care of it. So if you want to be present at the pre-sign, wonderful. Unless you feel a great need to be at the closing, we'll be more than happy to be there to represent Focus as well as Keller Williams, as your agent, to tie up the loose ends. But as a pre-sign, there's really not much that can really change, other than the other agent saying that earnest money's wrong and we're trying to wire out funds. So.
And if you're not going to be there as an agent, because I actually haven't been, because I don't want to crowd a room for just me to be there. So today, for instance, I had 2 closings last couple of weeks ago. I've contacted them. I was in contact with them the whole time, right before closing and right after, via text, phone call, whatever. But today I'm delivering their closing gifts to their house. And basically I said, I don't need to come in. I just want to stop by and drop off a gift to you. And just an added little touch. I want to see their new home. They happen to be right across the street from each other. It's so easy for me today. But just to kind of still keep in touch, and going to their house is always really nice. And don't push yourself in the door, just say, I want to drop something off.
Yeah,
It's
but
really great.
understand that they are limiting people from attending closings. That's still, very, very much an issue. And
As it should, because you're not 6 feet away typically when you're in that closing room. Don't throw yourself in there because you think you should. Honestly, you're better off not being there, in my opinion. You can, I've known agents that are sitting out in their cars
yeah,
in front of the building, like, hey, I'm here for you. And then they have the closing gift and they meet them outside and give them a closing gift. But just keep in mind to be careful.
we would love to have you there. We do. And
Right.
2021, hopefully we'll all have back to the funner, more enjoyable ways. But now please understand, it's while we would love to have you there, don't feel, pressure on yourself to attend. We'll drop off keys. I typically ask what the garbage and recycling is and what the code is, and I give it to them. I never get to be the one who hands over the keys. So it's kind of enjoyable for me to be able to do that, just kind of push you guys aside. But we do enjoy that. That's the highlight of it. Here, congratulations.
Yeah.
There's your new keys. Otherwise, we get kicked out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Andrea, do you see with COVID and the opportunity for so many pre-signs, do you see this to going forward after COVID to be kind of a standard procedure with pre-signing?
I think as a seller, you find it a little bit more convenient because typically, I would say over 50%, and you guys can speak to it, you're selling at 9 and you're buying at 1, and there's a crunch to get here so that you can get the truck loaded and so that you can get here. It's a convenience that I think releases just a little bit of pressure off of the sellers. They don't have to sit and just twiddle their thumbs. Like I say, we take the keys, we will help you with that. I know I've done some with Miss Katie, and I'll just hand them the information that they need. But I find that the sellers appreciate it a little bit more because it just takes that stress off of them a little bit more. And once again, we have those conversations about how do you want your proceeds. One quick thing about proceeds and wires. Focus is not handling the buyer side of it. We are not in charge of the wire. Whoever has the lender side, he who has the money sends the wire. So that's why you might see, some wires might be $20, some might be $50. It all depends on that. And sometimes a wire can take 5 minutes, and sometimes it can take 5 hours.
Yes.
So it's not like, I know a lot of people get nervous that it's not instant. Sometimes it's just, I know our protocol, just to reassure you of our safety and our double checking, is we send it to a second party to get released. We input it, they double check it to make sure it's correct, and then they are in charge of releasing it, just to make sure that it's safe and it's correct and not going to, China or, wherever. But so we do make sure that we have a 2-step approval process for all wires for everyone's safety.
That's good. What other questions? Any other questions that you guys have?
What services or what would you like to see us do to improve or what would you look for as something that we could incorporate into our processes and procedures that would assist you guys?
That's a good question. I feel
Happy.
I feel like you guys have done an amazing job. I honestly can't think of anything off the top of my head. I would tell you.
We're always open. We are not perfect. We'll work on, tying up loose ends, but understand the wires, why isn't this wire here? Don't do a closing at 9 and the next one at 10, because the wire will not be there. Give them a little time, because they have to do their processes. They might have to go back to their office. So please understand, don't do a closing at 9 and 10, because someone's gonna end up waiting, and then you're gonna be frustrated. And we want to limit that, because but just so that you know, us closers, we may tell a few white lies about funding. I've been known to say, I have a moving truck circling my building. I need my funding number right now. So we do have some, we do try and get things moving along. We want, like I said, the most important thing is that people leave, it's over, it's a happy experience. That is our 100% goal.
And Laura, going back to your pre-signing for a seller, even before COVID, we have always encouraged our sellers to sign a few days ahead of time. It is super stressful the day of closing. And some of the older clients, that would even be me, we used to close all together, buyers and sellers, in one happy room, and we would all close at the same time. That does not happen for privacy issues, for privacy reasons now. So they're always in separate rooms. And I always say, it's actually probably going to be more convenient for you guys to sign off a couple days prior. The likelihood of you even meeting the buyer if you closed at the same time is up in the air. So very minimal. That's kind of what I say. And if the buyers and sellers want to talk or whatever via email afterwards, I always ask permission, and if they want to have a conversation, just depends.
And Miss Laura, just about the pre-signing, let's just say we sign a week in advance and something changes. Walk through, the seller does not have to come back in and re-sign documents. One of our forms says that we're allowed to sign on their behalf for any lender documents and any changes. What we typically do is we will resend the closing statement to you saying, this is the new one. And if it's a change that I've discussed with the seller, I'll send it to them and I'll say, please confirm receipt of this change, just so that they know that, say, the taxes got paid or the sewer bill got paid or whatever change is. But once you pre-sign, you do not have to have them come back in and re-sign a closing statement because there was a last minute change. We don't sign their name. I sign Lee Andrea Bell as agent. So I don't sign, Nick Jurgensen as, I don't sign his name. I'm not allowed to sign contracts. And, any changes like that, I sign my name as agent. So you'll see a different closing statement in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah,
also, I did post a couple questions. So when you say, if they could pull up the previous title, you'll save 20%. What is that 20% off of? Like, I'm trying to think of how much of a savings they're looking at. Is it 20% off of $500 or?
Well, it's all, title insurance is based on on the purchase price.
Okay.
And we do have a calculator that you can go on and check with or without prior and for a quick calculation. So it's not off GAAP, it's not off closing services, it's off the base premium. I'm sorry, this isn't my computer, so I don't know about any questions, so you'll have to help me.
Yeah, I think we asked, Laura, we did ask that. I don't know if you weren't on.
Oh, I had to take a phone call. So
That's
sorry.
right. Okay, yeah, because I'm like, wait, we talked about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'd be interested in I'm always fuzzy about timetables. So I'd be interested in, a sheet that just had typical lead times that you would like to see. And, for instance, if there is a life estate, how that might screw things up as far as expect to add, 20 days or whatever,
Well, some of that will be difficult. You know, some accountants are better than others. Some are experienced in it, and some of them will, you know, have to refer that service out. So, I mean, I have a list of, I call it my broker's closing checklist for title, but some of this is kind of a little outdated because we're flipping houses and closing within 30 days.
Yeah.
A lot of things. We just ask that you turn it in as soon as possible. You know, don't wait till inspection. It's easy enough for us to, you know, go ahead and at least get that process started and get you in line for title, because this summer, I know our examiners were working ungodly hours because you guys just rocked our world with orders. But, you know, I'll be glad to share this broker's closing checklist for title.
Yeah.
That kind of just says, you know, at the listing, if you could look at doing this, once you get the accepted offer, get this along the way, you know, make sure we get the home warranty, make sure that, you know, we know about the closing time in place, that kind of stuff. So I'll be glad to share that with you. No problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good, Alex.
Yeah.
Andrea, I have a quick question. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. When we're preparing the seller's net sheets, do you have a breakdown of, you know, your focus titles costs that we can share with them?
Do you have the Palm, the app?
No.
Oh, it's a godsend.
We have a focus app that you can download and you can input that information. So just download it, and then they'll send it to me, and I'll just approve that you are, you know, a subscriber, and you can, and it does, you know, a rough calculation based on your purchase price. You enter like purchase price, commission, boom, and it'll give you an estimate.
And then you can just send it off PDF to your buyer seller. It's amazing.
It's not 100%, but it is a very good estimate. Would you agree?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so I download it, fill it out, send it to you for review, and then send it off?
No, you send it directly to them. Once you sign up to get the app, it might send me an email saying,
Got it.
you know, renew it for a year so that I know that you're using it. Like, I think Catherine uses it a lot. There's a couple of people who are around here. Connie is a big user of it. So it's a great tool that you can use it. Are you looking it up, Alex?
Yeah, because I remember that it sent me a notice that said you had to like re-up or something.
Yes, sir.
And
You're gonna re-up now, aren't you?
it's not pulling up.
So you might have to re-download it.
I had
Oh,
to
you have
find
to
mine. But
re-download
you
the-
guys, it's amazing. I use it all the time.
Yeah, Katie, once you plug in the purchase price, there's a highlighted detailed closing costs. And when you click on that, it breaks. I don't know if you can
Over. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
everything. So escrow fee, flood certificate, all that.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for me?
No, very informative. And I love these title classes because I've been doing this for 7 years, and every single time you guys come to productivity, I take something new away. So really appreciative of you
Next month
coming
will be
today.
Class 201. This is title 101. Next month it'll be 201.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Yes, in January,
Yeah.
January 19th, I think. So thank you very, very much.
My
And
pleasure. And please, once again, feel free to contact any of us because you have an office of closers, you know, in each of the branches, and understand, you know, keep it with focus, not with Nightberry, only because we want to keep it in our profit center.
absolutely. Before this little group goes, I'm going to just read something to you. That's one of my commandments that I look at on a daily basis, and I'm not kidding. I'm going to leave you with this. Every day you need to go to work like you are unemployed. You need to have the mindset that your job is to get hired by the end of the day. Your job is lead generation. Period. That's your job.
Drop the
Plain
mic.
and simple. Lead generation. So act like you're unemployed at the beginning of every day. Kind of a scary thought, but it kicks me in the ass every single morning. I have to prove it to myself. So so we're going to end this and we're all going to get to work.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy
you.
holidays. See you guys next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.